Welcome to School Shooter. Written and narrated by Thorsten Nesch. A mini-series in 4 parts. Part 1. School Shooter. The real heroes live 24 hours a day and not 2 hours in a play. Tennessee Williams. 9:10 a.m. It takes only 8 minutes and 19 seconds for light rays from the sun to reach the earth. As the sun shines through the oak canopy, the green leaves stand out against the cloudless sky, and tight white Reebok sneakers dangle from a branch turning in a soft wind. A sparrow lands on the laces and picks at the strings with its beak. Realizing this isn't food, it looks around, sings a melody, and flies down to the gum-laden sidewalk. The sparrow begins pecking at pieces of plastic that lie scattered on the pavement. A late student startles the bird and flies away. The young man deeply inhales the smoke from his last cigarette and throws a smoldering butt on the gravel next to the sidewalk. Still glowing, it lands on an existing pile of butts that looks like one big ashtray, hiding the gray pebbles of the gravel. Nearby, there is a 10 by 6 foot stone slab, and on it large metal letters spell out the name Nikola Tesla, the name of the school. With his hands in his pockets, the young man strolls casually across the schoolyard. The faded colors of the circles, lines, and painted boxes with numbers and letters are watermarks on the asphalt. To the right of him, a sea of bicycles glitters in the morning sun. Straight ahead is the main school building flanked by 2 side wings. Together they form a horseshoe 4 stories high. The school is composed of brown concrete and cheap glass. The window sills weep tears of rust that look like gallons of red gravy dripping down the stained concrete. The freshly painted colors of the mural at the entrance shine brightly, even in the shade. Different landscapes border each other. The jungle gives way to a desert, the desert to a sea, the sea to a mountain range, and the mountain range to an Arctic landscape where penguins share a sheet of ice with polar bears. Felt pen insults and declarations of love are written in the sand, water, and snow. Without taking his hands from his pockets, the student pushes the heavy door with his shoulder. Hinges squeal until the door stops against the wall. He shuffles in and the door closes behind him. The sound of a shot echoes in the empty hallways. He stops and looks around. A second shot echoes down the halls. He does not hesitate as he yanks the door open and runs out into the schoolyard. 9:11 a.m. Everyone is running, Nina thinks. Everyone is screaming. I should run, but I promised Mom and Dr. Kalitovich I wouldn't make a scene. The doctor said, "This school is your last chance. You'll be sent to a special school otherwise." A special school I don't want. "Come on, let's run," says a student with a blonde ponytail. She pulls on Nina's arm. "You're hurting me," Nina shouts. I bet she's in 10th grade. She looks so upset. "I'm coming." Suddenly the girl releases her. Nina looks down and sees a red smear on her arm where the girl had been holding her. "Is that blood?" the blonde girl asks and looks at her own hands. Her fingers are covered with blood. Shocked, she backs away and shakes her head. No, this is... Nina stammers. The girl turns and runs into the crowd. All Nina can see of her is her blonde ponytail swinging back and forth as she disappears. She really has beautiful hair. I would love to have long hair like hers, but I have to wear mine short. What a shame. Nina runs, joining the others running down the hall. She's running as fast as she can, but she is still slower than the others. There is no one from my class. They are all strangers. The crackling PA system comes on. A high-pitched female voice can barely be heard over the sounds of chaos. "Mrs. Coma," the voice echoes. "Mrs. Coma is coming." A code. A piercing whistle of feedback rips through the loudspeaker. Everything seems to speed up. A man starts talking on the intercom. No one can make out what he's saying. Then, with a sudden crack, the intercom system goes dead. Nina is pushed and shoved by the crowd. She tries to avoid an older boy, but he runs into her and she flies against the wall. Slowly, she slumps down onto the cold concrete floor. There are so many legs, so many long and short pants of all colors and fabrics, mostly denim. They run past Nina as she lies on the floor with her back against the wall. All these running legs, like the legs of the young horses on the farm last year. Finally, Nina is alone in the hallway. I don't want to be alone. Not here, not now. I have to get out of the hallway right now. She tries one door. It's locked. At the next door, she has better luck. It opens. 9:12 a.m. Nina slips through the door of the school library. She softly pushes the door shut behind her and looks expectantly at the librarian's desk. "No," she whispers under her breath. "Where's Miss Schupp? This is only the temporary library, but Miss Kreitz said that Miss Schupp is always here in the mornings." Nina's thoughts reverberate in her head as if she has spoken them out loud. "Miss Schupp, are you here?" she asks the empty room. She moves away from the door, the pounding of panicked footsteps in the hallway. Again, Nina looks around the library. She goes up on her tiptoes and then crouches down on her hands and knees on the bright linoleum floor. She can see between the books and the shelves. Nobody in here. Half the room is taken by 8 large shelves that tower over Nina. The shelves surround a large round wooden table with 6 imposing chairs. The other half of the room looks like a classic library. The shelves are arranged in rows, and 2 tall cabinets stand against the wall beside a waist-high cabinet with a sink. A door is open. It leads to a small storage room. "Miss Schupp?" No one answers. I'm alone. "Hello! Is there anyone here?" Nina calls out. In the hallway, somebody screams, "Help! Help!" I have to decide quickly. Stay calm. Think. Nina looks around. One by one, she opens the doors of the 2 tall cabinets. They're all full of files, books, and stacks of paper. But under the sink in the small cabinet, there are only 2 cleaning bottles, a small frayed broom, and a dustpan. After pushing everything into one corner, Nina has enough space for her petite body. She kneels down and silently pulls the door closed behind her. Nina brings her legs up and wraps her arms around her jeans. She blinks as she tries to get used to the darkness. Smell isn't bad. Lemon-scented cleaner lingers in the air, mingling with the scent of dust and dirt. Light shines through the cracks in the door and through the gap, where they don't exactly meet. Nina shifts her weight so that she can see the library through the gap. From the hallway, the sound of running students can still be heard, one by one. Suddenly, the library door opens. Nina winces. 9:13 a.m. Mark backs into the library and shuts the door. He clears his throat several times. With small steps, he moves down an aisle of shelves. Books and boxes sit stacked, waiting to be sorted. He limps on his left foot as if his no-name sneakers are one size too small. His red and white hip-hop jacket with multiple patch pockets hangs over his faded jeans. The morning sun breaks through the narrow windows right under the ceiling and makes the white on his jacket seem to glow. His dark shadow glides beside him on the bookshelf. The shelf ends and he runs into the back of a chair by the round table. Feeling exhausted, Mark pulls the chair out and sits down. Using both hands, he wipes the sweat from his face and rubs his short brown hair. Chest heaving and still out of breath, he buries his hands in the jacket pockets. His green eyes wander restlessly around the room. They fall on small dust particles, dancing in the light of the sun's rays. 9:14 a.m. Nina sits tight in her hiding place. Without blinking, she stares at Mark through the gap between the cabinet doors. Her thin lips are pressed so tightly together that they begin to turn white. Should I go to him? I don't know him, and he's older than me. Mom always says I should finish what I start. I think I should stay here and finish hiding. Why are my hands so cold? It's not cold in here. She clenches her fists so that her fingertips are protected by the warmth of her palms. What is he thinking? Do other people think as much as I do? I'm always thinking about other people. I don't think anybody thinks about me nearly as often as I think about them. I think about my friends. I think about teachers from elementary school. And I even think about people who I hardly know and who I haven't seen for a long time. But I bet nobody thinks about me. And what if they do? He's standing up. 9:15 a.m. Mark is walking past the shelves when the library door flies open. Ella bursts into the room and collapses. She looks as frightened as Mark does. She jumps up and throws her arms around Mark's neck and heaves a sigh of relief. He removes his hands from his pockets and hugs her tightly. Ella stands on her tiptoes and presses her head against Mark's shoulder. Her head sinks into his striped shirt. Mark clears his throat and blushes. As he puts his hands high up on her back, he notices the open door. He slams it shut with his left foot. Ella flinches at the noise and tries to break away from the embrace. It was just a door. You left it open, so I closed it. She shakes her head and pulls on her short-sleeved blouse. Ella, are you all right? Yes, Mike. Mark, he says. They slowly slip out of the embrace. Mark, sorry, she says, as she looks up at him. Doesn't matter, he smiles. Have you seen him? Who, Yes, have you? No, he answers. No, I ran like the others. Me too, I just wanted to get out. So did I. What if he comes in here, she asks. I don't think he will. Why not? They still can hear the sounds of students panicking and running in the hallways. Ella's head spins to face the noise. We'd better hide. Yeah, let's hide. Ella stares at the door as the handle moves down. Someone is pushing it from the outside. Before she can move, the door flies open again and in rushes Basti. He's barely recognizable. His long brown hair hides his face and spills over onto his black hoodie. The hoodie blends almost seamlessly into the black cargo pants he wears. He slams the door shut. His eyes focus, and the look of fear and shock starts to leave his face. Ella rushes over to Basti and hugs him tightly. Over Ella's shoulder, Basti nods to Mark. Mark nods back, buries his hands in his pockets, and keeps watching. It doesn't seem as if Ella and Basti will ever let go of each other. Ella raises her head and listens intently. What is it? asks Basti. Silence. All three turn to look at the door and listen for any sound. What did you hear? Mark asks. I don't know, she replies. I'm just scared, aren't you? Of course I'm scared. Shh, hisses Basti. Mark gives a big shrug that is made even bigger as his baggy jacket balloons around the movement of his shoulders. I hear nothing, absolutely nothing. 'Cause you're babbling, snaps Basti. Mark draws an invisible zipper on his lips. Basti rolls his eyes. They all hold their breath and listen. Something is happening outside the door. 9:16 a.m. The door bursts open and crashes into Ella and Basti, ending their hug. Two guys in snow-white tracksuits rush in. The cloth of the tracksuits is pulled tight at the shoulders from the bulging pockets weighing the material down. They both stop mid-motion, shocked to see people in front of them. For a moment they stutter and shudder like a broken MP3. As the door closes, they hit it with their heavy bodies and slide down against it, landing on the floor with a dull thud. Both are out of breath, wheezing so hard that the noise fills the library. They look up at the others, but no one says a word. Mark, Ella, and Basti stare in silence. Basti rubs his elbow, sore from where the door hit it. He moves closer to Ella and Mark. Dragger's two legs, are stretched out in front of him. His wrinkled white tracksuit makes them look like fallen columns of Greek temples. Around his fat neck and fingers he wears an excessive amount of fake gold jewelry. 9:17. In her hideout, Nina closes her eyes. The strip of light that shines in where the doors meet runs from her hairline down the center of her nose and right through the cleft in her chin, cleaving her face in half. Of all people, why did those two have to come in here? This is not good. She spreads her finger out like a fan over her face and looks through them. Couldn't they have gone down one more door? Why are the guys like them in every school? Why? They are so annoying. I can tell the other three don't like them either. They were hugging each other, but now they are just standing there. Ella bursts into tears. She covers her face with her hands to muffle the sound. Mark puts his hand on her back and whispers something into her ear. She presses up against him. Basti continuously wipes his hair from his eyes. Puffing out his cheeks, he shuts his eyes, puts his head back and takes a deep breath. Drager and Waldhauser look at the others. They could be brothers by the way they dress and the way the hair is cut. Waldhauser is a bit thinner and doesn't wear quite as much jewelry. His hair is dark instead of blonde, and his nose is crooked from an old break. But they share identical tacky white, loose-fitting track pants and jackets. As I get up, Waldhauser jerks Drager and he stumbles. Come on, let's see. Yeah, Drager says breathlessly to his buddy. He pulls out his phone and beckons for the others to come closer. Look at this, he says, and he shows the others his phone. Ella, Mark, and Basti stare at him. I have everything on video, he says. 9:18 a.m. Mark clears his throat. What have you got? He shifts his weight from one leg to the other and moves closer to Drager. He's got it all on video. He recorded everything, Waldhauser says quickly. Come here. Drager waves his phone in his hand. The show's about to start. He sounds like an excited ringmaster. Ella looks at Mark and then at Basti. With heads bowed, they all flank Drager, trying to get a good look at the video. Ella crosses her arms, looks at Basti and says, You don't really want to look, do you? Don't you want to know who it was? Basti asks back. Don't you pretend you don't care, says Drager. Using his gold-ringed thumb, he presses the play button. Screams come ringing out of the tiny speaker. Stop, shouts Ella. The boys huddle close to get a good look. Ella stomps her foot. The stomping turns into a step, another one, and then she stops in front of Drager, watching the video upside down. Mark leans in closer. Wake up, man, says Drager, and Mark listens. On the tiny screen, students are going crazy in the hallway, but it is impossible to tell who is who, because the video is shot at a low angle and most of the students' heads are cut off. A wall made of dark red brick and grey mortar looms to the left of the screen, and the autofocus of the camera sometimes focuses on the wall, causing the real action to blur and then shifts back to the fleeing students. Basti points at the screen. Hey, there's Timmy. I saw Timmy. Did you also get the shooter on it? Mark asks. Don't know, man, Drager answers. You have to know, you filmed it. Look for yourself. Ella points her finger at the phone. Her fingernails are short but slightly pointed and covered with dark red nail polish. Didn't you look up to see what you were recording, she says. Yeah, I did. A shot rings out through the speaker and the picture shakes violently. The recording continues from a dog's perspective. Running legs fill the screen. That was awesome. That was total chaos, says Drager without taking his eyes off the screen. Total chaos, repeats Waldhauser. The video ends. Oh, shh, says Waldhauser. Why did you stop filming? Mark asks. Didn't you hear the shot? We had to take cover. The weirdo was coming right at us. You saw him and didn't record it? Mark asks. Ella speaks. So who was it? I didn't see him, says Drager. We didn't see him. We crouched on the ground with our heads between our knees, adds Waldhauser. Your head between his knees, sneers Basti. Watch what you say, Waldhauser threatens. Drager laughs. Good one. Play it again, Mark says, nodding at the phone. And once again they listen to the frightened cries of the students coming from the tiny speaker of the phone. 9:19 a.m. Nina covers her ears. She bites her lower lip and shakes her head. When she looks at the sunshine, her eyes water and she has to stop the tears. I can't cry. When I cry, my nose runs, and then I have to blow my nose. I can't do this. They'll find me here. How will that look? I don't want Drager and his friend to find me here. I must not cry. Don't cry. I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. I should have eaten more breakfast. What if my stomach growls? Will they hear my stomach growl? 9:20 a.m. The boys put their heads even closer together than before while watching the video. Ella looks up and takes a quick step back. We have to make some phone calls, she says. We have to call right now. We have to tell someone we're here. Basti looks up at her. You're right. In a minute, says Mark. The other two are so absorbed in watching the video that they don't even hear Ella or Basti. Look, there's that bitch Katie, says Drager. He stops the video and zooms in with a thumb. The girl's face is so pixelated she's completely unrecognizable. You sure? Mark questions as he leans over the phone, but he doesn't take his eyes off Drager. Yes, that's her. Phone calls, says Ella. We need to make phone calls. Suddenly, the display blinks and goes completely black. No, Drager taps the keys and pushes the power button. What is it? Ella asks. No, don't tell me, Basti begins. The battery, Drager looks at Ella. It just died on me. You have to make the phone call with your phone. Why do you think I told you to do it? I can't make the call. I don't have my phone on me. It's in my purse, in the classroom. My phone's there too, Mark says. Oh, great. And Mr. Barricade just took mine away from me, curses Basti. All eyes are now on Waldhauser as he tries to find the right words. He opens his mouth several times, but nothing comes out. Drager nudges him with his elbow. Well, talk. Waldhauser looks at Drager. Drager cuts him off and turns to the others. His phone is lying in 100 pieces on the sidewalk, and Chris, the stupid idiot, probably still has plastic in his ear. How? Asks Mark. He pulled it over his head yesterday. What? The phone. Waldy whacked him with his phone. Just like that. Waldhauser and Drager chuckle. Yep, says Drager, just like that. Chris deserves that 3 times a day. The poor phones don't stand a chance. Why? Asks Mark. Who cares? Drager nudges his friend again. Do you have a charger with you? Asks Basti. No. Ella combs her fingers through her hair. So that means no one has a phone that works. 9:21 a.m. Too bad I'm not allowed to have a cell phone anymore, Nina thinks. Why do I lose them so easily? Now would be a good time for me to have a phone. The last one looked really cool. It was beige, and then suddenly it was gone and I couldn't find it anywhere. Mom said maybe I put it somewhere or lost it like all the others. It was a nice cell phone. I would like to have nice long hair, beautiful hair. If it wouldn't get into my eyes when I wash it, I could wear my hair longer. Consequences, says Dr. Kalitovich. A shadow slides over the vanity. Nina holds her breath. She leans forward to look through the crack between the doors, but sees no one. She hears someone rifling through a desk. Nothing, no phone. A desk without a phone. Shh, she hears Basti. We are trapped in here, adds Ella. From the other direction, Basti's shadow passes by the vanity again as he goes back to the others. If I only had a cell phone, I would be the star of the day. If I get one again, I'll take better care of it. 9:22 a.m. We're screwed, says Basti, looking around. Ella crosses her arms. It's all because you idiots had to watch the video. You didn't exactly turn away in horror, did you, sweetie? Sneers Drager as he continues trying to get his phone to work. After a couple of failed attempts, He stuffs it back into his pants pocket. Mark moves away from the door and goes to the round table. He shakes his head and laughs. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Draeger and Waldhauser, still slumped against the door, attempt to get up, but Basti holds them back with outstretched arms. Don't. Anyone could come through that door. Anyone? Draeger says, knowing the answer. Anyone in particular? Basti walks past the cabinets. His dark shadow floats along the wall and across the furniture. He speaks without turning around. Yes, anyone. If you know what I mean. I'm going to check the closet to see if there's a way out. He nods his head toward the narrow windows that are along one side of the room. Those are way too small for any of us to fit through. He circles the desk and disappears into the storage room. After a few seconds, Ella asks him, So? The broken fluorescent lights flicker as he switches them on. Nothing. Not even a window, is his disappointed response. Basti leaves the storeroom and quickly walks over to the desk along the high rows of shelves. He talks loudly to himself. I just had to end up here. One door down, I would have ended up in a classroom with bigger windows. Ella raises her arms. And then what? You'd still be on the 3rd floor. Jumping from there is not an option. I could have waved for help. Mark is sitting on the round table, entirely surrounded by shelves. He clears his throat and shouts through a gap between the books. So what? You'd have given yourself away to the shooter and made yourself bait. Basti throws his hair back out of his face. Ella points out the table and chairs. They arranged them in the same way they did in the old library. Like a star, says Mark. What? How? asks Basti. Look, all the shelves are facing away from the table, like points on a star. Oh, I see. Hello, Draeger raises his arms as if he is about to answer a question in class. My assistant and I are sitting here with our backs against the door. No one can push their way in, but the guy has a gun, and this thin wood sure isn't strong enough to stop a bullet. Waldhauser starts to get up, but hesitates and stops when he sees a friend making no attempt to move. Let's face the facts, Draeger says in a strong voice. We need to put something else in front of the door, just in case he finds out there are still people in here. Unless any of you want to sit here, I'm getting up now. Draeger stands up, and Waldhauser does too. Basti is standing next to the cabinets. He pushes with both hands to see if he can move them. They move a few inches. If we tackle this together, we can move them in front of the door. That should be sufficient. Stand aside, Slim, says Draeger. We can do this much faster, and you won't strain yourself too much. Now that I think about it, you should block the door with your forehead, Basti retorts. Draeger laughs. Very funny. Waldhauser doesn't get the joke, but he laughs anyways. 9:23 a.m. Ella sees Mark by the table, sitting with his hands on his hips. He's staring at some hidden spot between his feet. She walks slowly towards him. His shadow looks like a dark lump of coal on the bright floor. He doesn't move as she gets closer. He's either dreaming or he's pretending not to notice her. There's no reaction in his downcast eyes. The sunlight shines on his hair, creating a fine white wreath around his head. The sun rays blaze through the overhead windows, looking like the beams of a lightsaber cutting through the dust particles that dance in the air. Ella squints and asks, Are you okay? He raises his head, as if it hurts to look up. What do you think? They talk softly. Ella covers her eyes from the sun with her hand and then moves to one side so that she's beyond the reach of the blade of sunlight. You should stay with us. I am. Where can I go? He uses both hands to describe the limits of the room. I'm just saying. They can handle moving the cabinets on their own. We are all in this together, she says. Yeah. This is a day that none of us will ever forget. Definitely not. And we will always think of each other. We will always remember it was the 5 of us trapped here in the library, she says. Maybe we'll avoid each other because it'll remind us of what happened. But I think someday we'll meet again. He looks at her. Ella, you're all right. You're not too bad yourself. 9:24 a.m. Draeger and Waldhauser grab opposite sides of the first cabinet. With hardly any effort, they push it over the bright linoleum floor and stand it in front of the door. Between the two of them, the barricade looks solid. On the floor, where the filing cabinets had been standing, lie a wooden ruler and some pans that had fallen. An unpainted square of wallpaper with a power outlet is now visible. The cabinet with a sink is undisturbed. Mark moves towards Waldhauser, pointing at it. "What about that one?" Drager needs a moment. "If it's not permanently attached, we could put it on top." Waldhauser turns on the water. The aluminium sink rings loudly as the water hits it and splashes up onto the wall. "Well, at least we won't die of thirst," says Drager. "So," Basti interrupts, "you think we should still look for weapons?" "How would we arm ourselves, man? We can't find a gun. Do you want to go gunfight with pens and books?" Drager says, and then pushes Waldhauser aside to take a quick drink from the faucet. 9:25 a.m. The water gushes into the sink above Nina's left ear. It rushes through the hollow length of the plastic drain pipe. Her eyes are wide open as she sits in the darkness. Drager's and Waldhauser's legs are blocking the light that used to shine into her hiding place. Helpless, Nina holds her breath. She's pressing both hands hard against the floor to keep herself from tipping over. Go away. Let them drink, then go away. Let them leave me alone. I don't scare anyone. No one's afraid of me. Why am I here? I'd rather be on the farm. I like horses, and they're like me. I want to ride again. I want to ride over the fields like I did on the farm in England. It was so nice. I want to go there again on our next vacation. Drager and Waldhauser move away from the vanity. The sunlight shines through the crack between the doors and onto her face again. She hears a scratching noise beside her, then, just as suddenly, the scratching stops. 9:26 a.m. Drager wipes his mouth with his jacket sleeve and pauses. He looks at the door, and then he opens his eyes wide and looks from Basti to Waldhauser. "Shh," he says. "Doesn't that door open to the outside and to the hallway?" Waldhauser winces. Basti looks confused. "I'm just kidding," says Drager, and laughs into his sleeve. "You have a sick sense of humor," snarls Basti. Drager saunters over to the cabinets in front of the door and puts his hand on top of them. This looks pretty solid. Should be good enough to stop anyone from opening the door. Waldhauser leans back against the wall beside the vanity and plays with a silicone seal between the wall and the sink. Each time a piece breaks off, he flicks it with his fingers to a spot between the bookshelves. "I don't know," says Basti, sliding his foot along the bright PVC floor. The floor is slippery. "So?" Drager asks. "I think we should all sit in front of the cabinet anyway, just to make sure that the madman can't push his way in so easily." "Not going to happen." Basti sits down in front of the cabinets and pushes his back up against them. "Come on, we can all push against it if anyone tries to get it." He looks over his shoulder. "The cabinets are higher than our heads. Don't worry so much." "But what if he has a bomb?" Waldhauser asks. "If he has a bomb, then shit is going to fly anyways," answers Basti. "He doesn't. We would have heard about it by now." Drager sits down next to Basti. There's room for one more. He pats his ground beside him and looks at Waldhauser. "Come, do your service to society." Waldhauser mumbles, "I'm coming." He sits down next to Drager. Waldhauser starts to play with a long strip of silicone. Again and again he wraps the piece tightly around his finger and then releases it so it webs back onto itself. Basti looks down the aisle between the shelves to the table where Mark and Ella are murmuring amongst themselves. "Speaking of service to society," Basti says to them, "thanks for all your help." "Oh yeah, look who's talking," Drager says. 9:27 a.m. Mark is still sitting on the table with his feet on the chair. Ella is standing next to the bookshelf. They both turn to look at the other three. Mark and Ella's faces are barely visible against the shaft of sun sabering down from the skylight. "You guys did a great job," Ella says. "I didn't want to be in the way," Mark says and lowers his eyes. Basti gives him the thumbs up. "Mission accomplished." Drager and Waldhauser grin. Mark looks over, trying not to move his head more than he needs to. The main thing is, we're safe. Ella moves away from the shelf, turns around and scratches her head. Yes, we are safe, but what do we do if someone knocks on the door and wants to come in? Good question, says Basti. So the killer knocks and wants in to kill us. What are we supposed to do then? Not an easy answer, is it? Drager grins again and shoves him with his foot. Hey, we can always say, well, come on in, sit down, relax, would you like some tea? Stop it, says Ella, interrupting their banter. I'm serious. If someone runs across the hall, wants to hide, or has to hide, like we did, what do we do? What do we do? Do we open the door or what? Basti shakes his head. I would not open the door. Me neither, Drager agrees. He looks at Waldhauser. You? No, I'm not stupid. Mark clears his throat. I would open the door. What? Basti can't believe his ears. We could always ask who it is there. Basti scratches his head. Oh, I get it. Knock, knock. Who's there? Let me in, I'm just a normal student. He's about to return to his normal voice when Mark cuts him off with a sharp, okay. Basti doesn't finish his story. Instead, he pretends to load a pump gun. Mark buries his hands in his pockets. No, I don't think that would happen. I don't either, says Ella. Drager rubs his back against the cabinets as if he's lying on a very soft mattress. Believe it or not, we outnumber you 3-2. That means the door stays shut. 9:28 a.m. Nina can see the whole group, but Basti is only half visible. 3-3, she thinks. You can't let somebody just stand out there. I would open it. Yeah, I would open it too. She leans forward, closer to the slit where the right door hangs on its hinges. The slit narrows towards the bottom and widens at the top. Tiny eye-menacing splinters protrude into her sight. The longest splinter seems to smile at her as she squints to close one eye. She then moves her head so that the splinter lines up with Drager's neck and looks as if it is stabbing him in the back. She smiles to herself. Mean. Can you see the whites of my eyes from outside? Not from this far away, and if someone comes over, I'll just lean back. Above her, the water is dripping into the sink in a steady rhythm. Drager was careless and didn't turn it off properly. Nina sees Ella standing with her hands on her hips in front of the three who are sitting against the cabinet. 9:29 a.m. You're not serious, Ella says. They nod and, in unison, emphatically say, very. What is wrong with you guys? Basti takes over. What's wrong with us? We don't want to get shot. What's wrong with you? We were lucky. What if it was you out there, she replies. Drager narrows his eyes. That's just too bad. The way I see it is I'm sitting on the other side of the door with 2 filing cabinets standing between me and the killer. That is the way it's going to stay. Ella's eyes dance from one boy to the other. And what if someone else comes? Then what about them? I was recently in biology class, and it so happens that Bernicke was teaching about evolution, says Drager. Let's just say I now understand what he meant by natural selection. Waldhauser bursts into a laugh, but tries to keep it to himself. Are you nuts? Ella grasps for a word to express herself. Basti holds up his hands and says, what if it is only a teacher? Have you lost your minds? Are you all totally crazy? I was joking, Ella. What is a big joke around here? What is it? What's so funny? Do you find all of this funny? Basti tries to calm her down. Ella, Basti, what do you find so funny about all this? He jumps up and says soothingly to her, this must be a shock to you. We are all in shock, and some people react differently than others. For some of us, it means cracking jokes. Is that so? Ella says without much empathy. Yes. How do you know? I spent 2 years at the THW. The others chime in. What? I provided emergency assistance. You? How did you get in? Drager asks. I volunteered. Since when? Asks Ella. 3 years ago. I quit last year. Drager whistles. Phew, we have a doctor in our midst. Ella rolls her eyes. How long have we now been in here? Drager looks at his massive watch. 9:30 a.m. 20 minutes, he says. Feels like forever. Basti turns to her and Mark. What were you two talking about? Mark gives a solemn reply. That we are all bound together and that we will never forget this as long as we live. So true, says Basti. It's good that we're all sticking together. Both Mark and Waldhauser nod. The school bell rings. Big break time, says Waldhauser. Big shit time, says Draeger, and then he turns to Basti. Say, can you come to court with me next week? It's in the morning, so you don't have to go to school. Maybe you can say something nice about me. I've got a court hearing. What nice things would I say about you? No one would believe me anyways. Oh, you're funny today. I could make myself guilty of perjury. And why? Basti asks. They have a case against me. I knew you weren't going to play a lawyer for somebody. What are you being charged with? Temporary insanity. It says so in my psychological report. What happened? I went to the glam club and they wouldn't let me in. Let me guess, they want to see your ID. Yes, can you imagine? The bouncer said to me, "Get lost, you little punk." Called him little punk, says Waldhauser, and he points at Draeger. And you didn't back off, asks Basti. I did, but it was more of a tactical retreat. I went back again later with a big rock to throw through their big window. Oh, okay, but you didn't go through with it, did you? I go by there on my way to school, and their big window was never broken. Exactly. The problem was that the asshole of a bouncer was standing between me and the window. Draeger suddenly stops talking. Everyone listens to the sound of the door handle being pushed up and down as someone tries to open the door. 9:31 a.m. Basti is by Ella's side before she has a chance to take a step towards the door to speak. With one motion, he puts his hand on the back of her head and pulls her face close to the chest. Only muffled cries can be heard through the wool of his sweater. Draeger and Waldhauser continue their fight to keep the door closed from the floor. They push their backs against the cabinets. The lever of the door handle frantically moves up and down. The door shakes in its frame. Ella tries to free herself from Basti's hold, but she can't get away. Mark moves towards Basti to free Ella, but Draeger jumps up and grabs him. Draeger has the strength of a monster truck. He pushes Mark up against the shelf with one hand on Mark's chest, and with the other he places his index finger across his closed lips. Trying to break Draeger's grip, Mark kicks against the round rack of bestsellers. One of the books teeters and falls. Draeger catches the book effortlessly before it hits the ground and points it like a knife at Mark's face before he has a chance to utter even a sound. The handle goes back up and remains still. The only sound heard is the heavy breathing of Basti and the muffled sound of Ella's breath against Basti's sweater. He whispers in her ear, "Don't move." Ella's body is shaking. She tries to pull her arms free to get away from Basti. 9:32 a.m. Nina hears the footsteps running down the hall. Good luck. Hopefully he can save himself. How would it feel to be alone out there now? She's unaware that her breathing is in sync with Ella's. She breathes softly and silently through her mouth so that she is not heard by the others. I knew that it wouldn't work. What are they arguing about now? Don't fight. Stop it. Let Ella go. Let Mark go. He's gone. He's gone. The water's dripping faster into the sink. Can that be? My legs, back, and shoulders are getting sore. She can't stretch out in the small space of her hiding place, and her joints are stiff and aching. She can only move her upper body a bit to the left and to the right. Nina rolls her head back and forth to soften the ache in her neck. Let her go. Let Ella go. Be nice to each other. 9:33 a.m. Mark looks at the book still clenched in Draeger's hand. He says, "You still want to slam the book in my face? If I have to. Can I choose another novel instead of Wetlands? As long as you're quiet. I'll be quiet." "You know about this?" asks Draeger, holding up the book. "Yes." "Have you seen the movie?" "It isn't out on film yet, but I've read it." "In language?" "Not exactly. It's not among the classics of literature. I doubt it ever will be." "Why did you read it then?" Pointing at the novel in Draeger's hand, Mark says, "So I'm not getting knocked out with a book about bodily fluids." "Bodily fluids? Whatever you fancy is in there." Really? Drager lowers his arm and begins to leaf through the book. He finds a spot to read and holds the book with one hand while he props his other hand against the shelf. 9:34 a.m. Basti lets go of Ella. She darts right away to the cabinets by the door. Walthauser blocks her. Don't touch. She turns her back to him and shouts at Basti. Have you gone crazy? Have you lost it? Basti's whole body tenses up as he splays his arms out and clenches his teeth. His eyes narrow and he hisses at her to be quiet. Surprised by his hostility, Ella forces herself to calm down. She looks at him as if he is a stranger. She shakes her head, says gently, Basti? Yes. Someone wanted to get in here. Yes, and that could have been the killer. Who do you think is still running through the halls? And if it wasn't the killer? Drager pipes up. Then nothing has happened to him either. We didn't hear a shot. If it was a killer, he would have thought no one was in here until he heard you trying to scream. If he had heard you, I bet he would have tried again. Since we can't hear anything now, I guess we got lucky this time. Drager places Wetlands back on the shelf between two math books. He turns to Mark. Not my thing. I find online videos better. Whoever was out there was also lucky, Mark says. Exactly. He probably tried another door and is hiding there. Basti nudges Ella. Everything is fine. Fine? You call this fine? She casts her eyes over each person, one by one. Her stare holds the question they don't want to answer. Basti's gaze follows her eyes around. Mark turns away. Drager holds her gaze, and Walthauser continues to play with a strip of silicone he had peeled from the back of the sink. She looks at each of them before finally resting her eyes on Basti. Her mouth doesn't move, but a tear rolls down her cheek. She wipes it away with her hand and, in a choked voice, asks, Do you really call this fine? 9:35 a.m. No, Nina bites her lip. Nothing here is fine. I want to be back at Senetal. I want to go back to my friends at my old school. This is a stupid school with stupid students. Why did we have to move here? I didn't want to. On the farm in England, it didn't even get this dark at night. I've never seen so many stars before. Everything felt right and Mom was so happy. It was so beautiful. And during the day we rode, fed and groomed the horses. My horses. We even cleaned out the stalls together. Everything was great. It was fun. Chewbacca, the funny brown mongrel dog on the farm, and the two cats, Cheech and Chong. And there were all these other animals, like the chickens and fluffy white rabbits. Then there was a family. Even Scott, their son, was nice to me. We could have stayed there longer, but because of me, we had to leave. See you, Scott had said as we left. See you. I hate it here. I hate it. 9:36 a.m. Basti takes a step towards Ella. Hey, Ella uses both hands to push him away. She blows a strand of hair from her face. How could you? I would have expected that from Drager, she says, as she points at Walthauser. He raises his eyebrows as if to say she should watch what she is about to say. She speaks directly at Walthauser now as if he's not there. He doesn't count. He just does what Drager tells him to do. Or, Walthauser, am I right? Are you an own person, like at all? I am. Walthauser starts to stand up. Drager signals him to sit down. Be calm. Walthauser stretches the silicone on his thumb, aims it at Ella and releases it. She ducks. The silicone lands next to Mark's feet. He's standing beside the rotating stand of bestsellers. Ella gives Walthauser the finger and turns to Mark. Thanks anyways. What for, he says as he moves the squeaky turnstile around. For wanting me to help. Didn't make a difference. That doesn't matter. Basti sits down next to Walthauser and swears to himself. I cannot believe it. Mark and Ella walk past them. Where are you going? Shopping, answers Ella. Then she turns to Mark. Where shall we go then? We're going to check out the closet. Look, Drager grins. Mark is limping and he brought along his nurse. Ella. What happened, Mark? Why the limp? Did someone stomp on your big toe? Something like that, Drager. Something like that. 9:37 a.m. Their shadows pass over the sink and onto the wall. They walk around the desk. Mark glances at the broken monitor with the out-of-order sign on it. The door to the storage room is half open. Ella pushes it, and it hits the crate stacked behind it. The storage closet looks as if the movers couldn't be bothered to finish the job. Shelves on the walls are filled with folders, pens, adhesive strips, index cards, dividers, stickers, and notepads. No particular order. Boxes are stacked right up to the ceiling. The white shelves are scratched from the staples of the boxes that were hastily shoved onto them. Power cords and attachments hang out of ribs and tears in the broken boxes. The back of the storage closet is blocked with broken electronics and is scattered with old overhead projectors, printers, monitors, keyboards, and hard drives. "This is what happens when teachers are in charge of a move," says Ella. "Do you really think the teachers have hauled that stuff in here?" "Who do you think did it?" "Janitors, parents, mothers, fathers, who would gladly sacrifice their free time to help out at the school their kids go to." Mark sits down on a computer without sides or a back. Wires loop around the green circuit boards with loose copper stripping. He looks to the flickering lights above him. This is so irritating. Ella peeks around the door to the library and whispers, "So what's up?" Mark takes a moment and asks, "How well do you really know Sebastian?" "Basti? Why?" "Just curious." She looks at Mark questioningly. "Is that what you wanted to talk to me about?" "You don't have to. What do you want to know?" "You seem to know each other well," he says. "What makes you say that?" "Well, it's the way you treat each other. You seem to have, feelings for each other." "I seem to. It's not really your business, isn't it? But if you have to know, I do have some feelings for him, but the rumors aren't true." "Rumors?" "Forget it," she says. "Boys." "What?" Ella looks out to the others and says quietly to Mark, "So why do you want to know if there's something between us?" "I just find it weird that Basti is siding with those assholes out there." Fake kisses are heard coming from the library. 9:38 a.m. Nina slowly sways from left to right, making sure that the boards beneath her don't creak. "Now I can't hear a thing because Waldhauser is making loud kissing noises. Thank you very much. Sounds like a baby sucking on a pacifier. The last time I heard that noise was in elementary school. I can't hear Ella and Mark whispering anymore. Guys couldn't hear Mark and Ella, so maybe that's why Waldhauser is doing this. I couldn't see them, but I could hear every word. What rumors? What are they talking about?" Through the cracks in her hiding place, Nina can see the desk to her side and the faces of the 3 boys sitting in a row by the door. They seem to be looking right at her. They have not let the storage room door out of their sight the entire time. 9:39 a.m. Basti and Drager look past each other at Waldhauser, who continues to make sucking noises with his mouth. In the storage room, 2 shadows are seen moving around. Ella comes out first. "That sounds like someone who hasn't had a lot of practice kissing and doesn't know any better." Waldhauser interrupts his soundtrack. "Then why don't you show me how it's really done, Ella?" "Sure." He jumps up. "Really?" "Yes, if you get me a really cute guy in here, you can sit and watch us kiss. Maybe you'll learn something." Mark laughs out loud as he follows her. "Or I could be just that cute guy," says Waldhauser. Ella scoffs. "Yeah, and I'll be the Queen of England." It is Basti's turn to laugh out loud. His laugh drowns out Mark's laughter. "Sit down," says Drager. "It's not going to happen." Waldhauser mutters something and does what he was told. Mark walks over to stand beside the shelf where the other guys are all sitting on the floor. Ella walks over to the round table. All of them watch her. She turns around abruptly and the boys pretend to look at everything else but her. Mark's gaze falls on a book with a red back. He pulls it from its shelf and opens it. Ella crosses her legs. No one said a thing. School is silent. Basti wraps his arms across his bent knees and rests his forehead on his arm. 9:40 a.m. Drager plays with the rings on his fingers and mumbles something. "What?" asks Waldhauser. He holds his left baby finger up. "Fuck my ring. My new ring is gone." "Lost?" "No, it's a magic ring that disappears before my eyes. Of course it's lost." Do you know where you lost it? Don't you think if I knew... Did you still have it when you moved the shelves over the door? I don't know. Ella holds out her arms, palms facing down over the table, and shakes her fingers. Adorning her middle fingers and ring fingers are small silver rings. Who buys a ring that doesn't fit? She says. Who said that I bought the ring? Waldhauser chuckles. Basti looks up. Mark slams the book shut and puts it back on the shelf, making sure that it lines up with the others. It probably happened while I was outside, says Drager. You were out of breath when you busted in here, says Basti. We were surprised, says Waldhauser. Drager curses again. Basti asks, where were you guys coming from anyways? Waldhauser and Drager look at each other. Drager nods upwards with his head. We were on the 4th floor. Mark frowns. What were you doing up there? They both look in different directions. Hello, Mark waves his hand. Therapy room. We were in the therapy room. So you were 2 hours into school and already in the therapy room? That's a record. What did you do? Doesn't matter. Tell me. No. Who was there? Newman. Mark starts talking with a strong British accent as he pretends to push his invisible glasses up his nose with his middle finger. Your TH is very poor. They all laugh. Ella leans back so that 1/3 of her face is in the sun. Sharp shadows emphasize the tiny laugh lines around her mouth. Basti looks at her, but their eyes do not meet. Waldhauser laughs silently, shrugging his shoulders. Drager claps a silent applause at Mark. Man, that was amazing. You captured Newman dead on. I've heard him often enough. Your TH is very poor. So you were in therapy room when, Mark stops his sentence short. Yeah, answers Drager. Newman must have rolled his eyes when the chaos started. He did. And then? Evacuate, was all he said, and that we should follow him. He opened the door, looked out, but the hallways was already packed with students, and we ran after him to the small staircase, which was completely blocked off. And then we backtracked and went down the main staircase to the floor below. That's where we almost ran into the killer. You saw that on the video. Then we ran down to this floor and came in here. For a moment everyone is silent, lost in their own memories of the morning. Took you long enough to get here, says Basti, thinking out loud. Well, what? Well, we hid in the doorway for a bit to make sure the coast was clear, and then we ran down the hallway and crashed into this door. Drager scratches his head. What about you, Basti? Me? I panicked. I was probably in the crowd running down the stairs that you saw. It was painfully slow. It felt like it. He grimaces with his memory. They all stare down at the ground for a moment. Who was here first? Asks Drager. I was, says Mark. I should have guessed that, Drager says with a grin at Waldhauser. Where was your class? Ella asked Mark. 3 doors down. When I saw how crowded the hallway was, I just wanted to get away. Didn't want to become a victim. I came in right after him, she explains. I had biology in room 308 and was thrown into the chaos like everybody else. School Shooter. Written and narrated by Thorsten Nash. School Shooter is available as short novel on Kindle and as pocketbook on Amazon with my other novels and audiobooks. Link is in the description. The novel was translated by Heidi Gertz, edited by Andrea Kubala. The music you're listening to is by Max Wuerden with the track It from his album All Lost. And if you have listened up to here, I dare to imagine you like what you heard. Then please like it or subscribe or write a little review. It would be amazing. Tell others, share, or even consider purchasing this novel or another one of mine, of course. However, thanks for listening. And if you have questions or comments, just drop a line. Thanks. Cheers.